Hey everyone, welcome to the Dare to Care podcast, the podcast where we talk about the inner workings of ministry at Inspire Family Fellowship and community stories within and around the church. If you have any comments, stories, or questions today about Inspire or our Dare to Care ministries at any point during the podcast, feel free to send those questions to amy@inspirefamily.org. We also invite you to join us in person at Inspire any Sunday that you're able, 523 North 21st Street, Bismarck, North Dakota. Our Sunday services are at 9:15 and 10:45. My name's Ty Farnsworth. I'm the worship coordinator here at Inspire Family Fellowship, joined today by our youth and children's coordinator, Kate Little.
Hi, everyone.
As well as our special guest today, former Inspire youth, Ben Peske. Ben, how you doing?
Good.
Is it weird being a former Inspire youth?
Yeah, definitely. Even at camp when Kate pulled us over to the leader side now, that was a little like, no, this isn't right. So, especially with all of my college gear looming over my bed, it's like adulthood staring me in the face every time I wake up.
Yeah, I remember that feeling. I was not a fan of it either.
Yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of it, but it's definitely a new
different.
feel. Yeah, it's definitely different.
There's a lot of new stuff going on in your life, and we'll talk about it in a sec. I wanted to start kind of the same way we always start these podcasts, and a few weeks ago we heard from your brother. I'm joking, we recorded these back to back, but for them it'll be a few weeks ago. Where does your faith journey begin?
For me, I always say I have the most boring, testimony ever, which I don't think is necessarily true. But I was born Christian, have pretty much stayed Christian my entire life. I mean, obviously we all stray, we all have our ups and downs, but I think my constant trajectory has been up. So it's not a very exciting faith story, but I think it all starts when I was born. My parents were both Christian. They raised me Christian all throughout my life. A big part of my faith has always been service. I've always been serving in the church, helping around, and just trying to live that faith through my life.
Sure. You gave a pretty, to me at least, impactful version of that story when we were at camp the last couple weeks, where you talked about, your life, like you said, has been fairly blessed and fairly, for lack of a better term, easy. Mm-hmm. And you've had some ups and downs, but recently you came across just a test of identity. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. So I recently started looking into the National Guard as a way to pay for college, and something I've always kind of been interested in, military service, that sort of thing. And I'm a big musician, so I knew that if I was going to do that, it would want to be somehow through that music route. And in order to do that, I had to audition for the National Guard Band. And unlike normal auditions that are held in North Dakota and judged right away, I had to record and send in an audition because I wasn't playing a wind instrument. Because of the people in North Dakota are only instructed to judge wind instruments, and I had to send it in to the Army School of Music in Virginia Beach. And over that time period, I spent usually about a month playing, and then I would a month practicing. Then I would send in my audition, and I would wait. Usually they said 2 to 3 weeks, but what ended up happening is it took about 4 weeks, and I got the news back that I didn't pass the first time, which, looking back now, isn't too big of a deal with how I kind of dealt with it. But really, in my life, it was the first time I had ever failed an audition, which is something that I'm not trying to brag about, but something I never expected to fail this audition, especially since they have a rubric, and the scores you have to get on the rubric to pass are frequently messes up. So it definitely wasn't something I was expecting to fail, especially because my good buddy Karsten, who I guess had a podcast earlier, who's now at basic training, passed his and got his news about a week earlier. He was playing a different instrument, but still aside, I was kind of excited, we were both going to start at the same time. But eventually I got the news that I didn't pass that. And it wasn't, terrible like some people's events in my life, but probably one of the worst events in my life, as it kind of reshaped who I was. Because in my life, I had always been this musician who was good. I practiced hard, I worked hard, I played in all these groups, I passed these auditions, that sort of thing. And to finally hit a point where it was you're not good enough. And I think it was very beneficial for me, but I kind of had to rework who I am. Because if I was this, musician my entire life, now I'm not that musician. Who really am I? And conveniently, that was our theme at camp this year. And it was kind of nice going into that. I kind of had to go through this battle of who am I if I'm not this good musician I thought I was. Because I wasn't up to the Army's standards. And eventually, after some consideration, I don't like giving up. So I tried again. And this time I worked harder. I took lessons with the guy that was going to judge me at the end in the Army School of Music, and got some private lessons from him over Zoom that were like 2 hours long, telling me what he wanted to hear. And worked my butt off, and eventually auditioned again, waited. About a month. The only thing is, usually the auditions take 2 or 3 weeks to get your results back, because they have to judge everyone in the nations. But it can't be more than 30 days. And eventually it hit 31 days, and I didn't hear a response. I got really worried because the last time that I didn't hear results very fast was because I failed the audition, and the people in North Dakota were kind of working up a way to try to figure out with the guy if it was still worth auditioning again. And I was waiting. Every day that went on, it was like less chance that I was going to make it. It's like, oh my goodness. And at that point, I'm putting off college because college was coming up, because this was in about this audition was probably in maybe February or March. Mm-hmm. So I was going to know my results in April, and I had to start signing up for classes soon. So if I didn't pass that audition, I would have to audition again, putting me even closer to that college deadline. And I didn't want to put off college for this maybe that I'll get in. So I was really stressing. And then actually right before Luke Naslund, who was also on this podcast, left, we were having one big get together with all of our friends at Harmon Lake. And we were out swimming, and I swam out for we were on these paddle boards. I swam out, and I was gone for an hour and a half on this lake. And I saw someone appear on the beach, and I was just okay, it's a beach, people come and go. So we were out there, and then an hour and a half, I finally get back to the shore, and I realized it's Deanne Filling, who goes to church here, but also is second in command of the Army National Guard Band here in the state. And I was like, oh, that's weird. I didn't think anything of it, which is kind of stupid to me. But I was like, oh, that's weird. What is she doing here? And then we continued, and then we were eating lunch, and we're like, Deanne, do you want to come eat lunch with us? She's like, oh, yeah, I got some stuff in my bag. And then she was reaching into her bag to pull out, I don't know, quesadillas or something. And she pulls out this big, congratulations balloon. I was like, what's that for? She's like, you made it. I was like, oh! So that was kind of nice. So eventually I did make it. I enlisted about 3 weeks ago as of recording this. I got my military ID yesterday as of recording this. And I leave for basic in January. I have my drill this first weekend. And it's good to know that my hard work paid off. But I think I definitely reshaped my life into this. Who does God say I am?
Sure.
Ben Peske, have always said, I'm a good musician. I do this. I'm successful for this reason because I work hard, that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, I wasn't who I said I was. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of this redigging of okay, clearly I don't know myself. So I should look into what God says I am. Mm-hmm. So that was definitely a journey for me.
Yeah, I think, I speak for myself. I don't know about you, but as the music guy here at church, when I found out that you hadn't made it, I think a lot of us were really surprised, simply because, and you've mm-hmm. always been a musician. There are pictures on the wall here of you playing bass when you were in elementary school in the church band. You have been doing this for forever. And like you said, life for the most part for you has been pretty easy. You win every audition, and to have this setback where you can kind of reshape okay, what am I? Who do I need to be? Who does God say that I am over what the world says that I am? I think it was challenging for us as your leaders, trying to see you walk that, but now seeing the success of that and seeing where you are now 6 months later is incredible to see.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to admit that everything has come easy to me in that sense. Not so much the hard work, because I feel like I do work hard at that sort of thing, but the results have kind of always come as almost a bonus as that. It's mm-hmm. I work hard, and these results happen to always go the way I want them to. And it definitely was hard to see that not happen for me. And I feel like I should be clear. My first audition, I was not at that par or anything. The second audition was way better. Everything they said was right, and it wasn't some kind of faulty audition, or sometimes people like to say, and this is probably true, but I don't think it was true for me, where people say, they fail you on the first time to see if you'll pass the second time, if you're going to work hard at it. But everything, looking back, I was not nearly mm-hmm. at the right skill set. And I still, sometimes I feel like I'm not quite at that skill set, but that's why I guess we keep on practicing.
Sure. you got to make fun of Evan on his podcast. I want to hear some stories about Ben, because Ben's graduated now. We don't have to hold anything back. What, from a youth leader, tell us a little about Ben from your perspective, and just how much you've seen him and his friend group grow. And we didn't have you on any of the podcasts with his friends, did we?
I was with Karsten.
You were with Karsten.
I wasn't there with Luke.
Okay.
During that one, but I've loved to see Ben realize who he is and like the role that he plays, because you're not always quiet. You aren't, but you're kind of the more quiet one of your friend group.
I think they're all just loud.
You're right. You're normal. The rest of them are just excessively loud. No, but I love, because I feel like at some points you've thought, well, I don't have as much to offer maybe because I'm not going to be the loud one that's up there like jumping and screaming like all of the rest of your friends are. But I think you found your role and where you fit in your friend group, which not that you didn't really know, but I feel like whenever I've tried to compliment you on things in the past, you're like, well, it's not that big of a deal, or no, like I didn't do as much as this person, or you'd always try to kind of like downplay the compliments, like everybody will. I try to compliment Ty and he's like, no. And I'm like, Ty, accept the compliment. But just realizing how you fit into your friend group, because they need the quiet, wise Ben who is able to come in and just share things from your perspective. And like, you might not be the one that's up jumping and screaming all of the time, even though I make you do that a lot. But like, something that I've admired about you that we kind of touched on in Evan's podcast, and I think he learned it from you. You'll hear that. He complimented you. You should go listen to that if you haven't already.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It's a weird thing.
No, he's
but
great.
that you're really good at inviting people to church. You're really good at making people feel welcomed here. And that's something that I've just seen you grow in. I mean, you've always been good at it, but we always call you guys Jesus bullies. Did we talk about that in Carson's podcast?
I think so. At least Luke's. I know Luke's we did.
Maybe that one. But explain a little bit to us like how you're able to do that, because that's not something that kids are really easily able to do. I feel like they're always intimidated to share their faith and to invite people to church.
Yeah, totally. I feel like I've always been, I like to be, I guess not in the background. Like some people really like the tech team thrives and, hiding behind and make everything work, but not having the people side. I wouldn't say I'm an introvert, but I do kind of like those supporting roles. Like I don't really sing. I don't like, I guess even from a musical standpoint, I play bass, drums, and piano. It's like the background instruments. So I feel like as that kind of supportive role, I feel like I can relate to people that are also in that same boat. Because I feel like you have this spectrum of super, I shouldn't say loud, but like energetic to like super calm. And I feel like by somewhat being more on that calm, reserved side, I can relate to the people in the church that are like that. Because I feel like what's great about Inspire's youth is we have a lot of those energetic people. We're always up in the front, jumping, all that stuff, screaming. But I feel like there's also, people like me who kind of, like to sit back and observe. And they're still like energetic and they still are having a great time. But it's nice, I guess, if I can just make them, as a leader, we talked out at camp about how everyone has something to offer to a group. Mm-hmm. We were talking about Ralsted talked a ton, and I loved that. And it was kind of a resemblance of our personality. He's very outgoing. He's a smart guy. He talked a lot, and I feel like he related to a lot of people. But I hope that by my not talking a lot and sitting in the background, I can also relate to people who also feel the same way. Mm-hmm. But on that note of inviting people to church, I found that it's way easier to invite people to church than you think. I think a lot of it is to do with my friends, because all of my close friends are either, it's kind of funny, all of us either went to Inspire and that's how we're friends, or we brought them to Inspire and they're our friends who go to Inspire now. So it's like pretty much, I would say like out of my close friends, like 80% of them go to Inspire. So it's been really easy to invite people to church because I never feel like I'm doing it alone. It's like a tag team strike. It's like we legitimately occasionally have like sat down and say, okay, who's our target? And so we'll pick Jimmy, Jimmy. And we're all going to kind of try to convince Jimmy to come to church. And it's just the little things like, hey, Jimmy, do you do anything Wednesday nights? It's like, sometimes. I'm like, if you're ever free, just let me know. You can come to church with us. And then you just like walk away. You don't even have to give them a chance to like instantly say, yes, I would love to go to church with you, like the entire time. And I think just by subtly inviting people and just Inspire makes it easy. Wednesday nights are always my like gateway drug, I feel like, to church for people. I don't know if I should say that.
That's okay. I like it.
And I feel like it's easy to invite someone to Ignite because, you can pull up pictures of videos like, look, dancing, lasers, smoke machines, singing, all this stuff. And everyone's like, oh, that looks like fun. Even, oftentimes what I would do, which isn't even really the truth. I hope Jesus doesn't get mad at me for stretching the truth to invite people to church. I feel like if there's ever a point for that, that would be it. But I think oftentimes I'm like, oh, for youth group, yeah, most of the time, or sometimes we'll just go out across the street and play like football. I'm like, oh, really? And then they get there, I'm like, oh, shoot, we're actually having a lesson tonight. Ah, dang it, that was next week. So oftentimes it's that. So I think it's just so easy to get people in the doors at Inspire. It's like, look at how fun this is. Especially if you have other friends who are like, yeah, this is fun. Because if everyone around you is saying, yeah, this is fun, I mean, it just becomes peer pressuring. It's like, well, I don't want to miss out on this fun thing. And it's almost like you can get them to forget that Jesus is the point, which I don't think is... You got to be careful with that. But if you can get them in the door and then sneak a little Jesus in every time they come, and eventually, over time, I found that my friends almost convert themselves. I feel like people stress about, oh, I need to save this person's life. I don't want them to go to hell. I think just invite them. If you can get them in the doors, they'll start absorbing that information little at a time. And then pretty soon, I mean, you've got a full-blown Christ follower on your hands, and you're like, how'd I get to this? Mm-hmm. I think my good example of that is Aiden, a good friend of mine, who one day we just talked. We didn't even invite him to church. We just always talked about church. Thursday mornings at the breakfast table. It's like, oh, we loved how we sang that song. Oh, youth group was fun. And one day he literally came up to us and he was like, hey, I'm coming to church tomorrow night with you guys. We're like, oh, yeah, that'll be great. He's like, what time does it start? I'm like, okay, dinner's at, and it's like he invited himself, and now he comes every week. Great guy. We went to Glacier, and he wrote all our devotionals. Great Christian guy. And it's funny how sometimes the church ends up inviting people for you in more ways than one.
Yeah, we've seen it. I mean, Aiden's not the only example, and I'm not going to name names, but we've seen how successful that plan has been, not only for you, but especially we talked about with Evan and the people that he's bringing to church. And hopefully by the time they're your age, they're engaging in it the way you guys are now as fresh adults. It's very cool to see. Yeah,
totally. I remember, I think it's in my grandma's house. She has a sign in the kitchen that says, feed them and they will come. And I think that's kind of his church. Is you provide a fun environment and they'll come. And then all of a sudden they don't realize that you're like the equivalent of like sneaking green beans into their food. Like they're actually,
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, they're actually absorbing this whole Jesus thing, and before they know it, they're like, wait a second, this guy came to earth and died for me, and and all of a sudden, you don't even have to do any of the work. I feel like I've never worked to invite people, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
I don't remember who. I think it might have been your dad that said it first. Is like, we're never gonna apologize for good bait. Like if you, as long as
Tim.
Was it
Your
Tim?
Uncle Tim, I think, is the one that uses it.
Rob just quotes it a lot then.
Tim uses it a lot. I don't know who came up with it first, but that's been a motto here.
But just, we're never going to apologize for having good bait, because once you get him in the door, then Jesus is going to take care of the rest. Like, it's our job to introduce him to it, and then we got to let God work through the rest of that. And
totally,
like you said, we can't save people. All we can do is invite them, and then watch like God work.
The age-old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that, where my dad's told me, like, the Holy Spirit's going to do all the work. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're doing anything, the truth is it's doing something the Holy Spirit's doing through you. Yeah. So I feel the need just to invite people, get them in the door, and then oftentimes maybe answer a few questions here and there. Sometimes, it takes a couple of tries. Like, they come one week, it's like, oh, come next week. And they're like, oh, I'm busy. And then you invite them next week. So sometimes you got to reel in the bait a little bit. But over time, I feel like I did no work.
Is there, it's the Dare to Care podcast. Is there anyone in your life, obviously, like I said, you're a Peske, you've been surrounded by the church your entire life. Is there anyone here at Inspire, and maybe let me change that, is there anyone here at Inspire that maybe you wouldn't expect, who has influenced your faith in a really just profound way?
Totally. I feel like my dad is the obvious answer, but that's, like a recent addition. I mean, I guess he's always had a massive impact on my faith, but he's, only become a pastor recently. We used to, on like the second and fourth Sunday of the month, I would host men's Bible study at my house. And I stopped doing it because I'm busy, and I apologize to anyone who went to it. It was probably like 7 or 8 of us guys, and it was a good time. It was just like everyone's so busy during the school year, and occasionally we were reading Romans, so it was a complicated book of the Bible, and we would constantly have questions, and we would be sitting there, we would debate it for like 15 minutes, and everyone there was very smart, so it was like we were really trying to figure this out. We couldn't figure it out, and eventually I would just like, go up the stairs, and I would yell like, "Pastor Dad!" And then my dad would come down, and he would say, "Okay, what do you need?" And we're like, "Okay, so Romans 6:17." It was like, whatever, random Bible verse. What does this mean? And he would read it, go, "Okay." So really, and he would just go on, and he would have this perfect example for it. So that's someone that's definitely impacted my faith in that way. But even in the small things, "Hey Dad, what does this mean? Hey Dad, why does it say this?" Like all these things where he's always had this answer, even from, as long as I've known him, not since he's just been a pastor. The other big person, there's I think everyone, honestly, but another big person is Isaac Rhodes. I say he's getting married here soon. I always say that he's my first friend to get married, because I knew him when I was a freshman. He was a senior. Him and I played in band, like a invitational band festival together. The first time I met him was a really funny story. We were on the van back home in a church van from a percussion festival, and I had chips by the side of my feet, and I kept on reaching for the chips, but I kept on grabbing his foot for like 5 minutes, and then like it was like 5 minutes. I was like feeling around for my chips. I just kept on grabbing his foot.
This is making so many things make so much more sense right now.
I've never heard this story.
I talk about it all the time when I'm in a church van, and then in the most Isaac way possible, in his very wise and tender voice, he goes, "That's my foot, buddy," and so that day, that's the first thing I literally remember him. I know that wasn't the way home from the trip, but we always joke that's the first time we met is, "That's my foot, buddy." So every time we're in a church van, we make an effort to recreate it. So
that's hilarious.
Later that like month, I imagine, we played in a band festival together, and I think that was even before he started coming to church at Inspire. And now he's, part-time staff here, full-time leader, and great guy who, I've met with him for coffee, and well, not coffee, because we both hate coffee. So we go to like fun places where you get good food. So
that seemed like a dig at me for some reason.
He looked directly at you when he said that.
We went to Copper Dog with like custom waffles with chocolate and peanut butter on them. It was delicious.
He's telling you to do better.
Possibly.
I'm trying.
But Isaac's always been a very helpful hand, especially as someone that I've definitely, known as a friend and felt like I could talk to as a friend. And now he's a leader that I feel like I can talk to. I went to camp with him, so we were friends, and he's my leader now, but we're still friends, and just a guy that I know I can call if I need anything.
Sure.
I could go on forever naming people, and I'm sure that's a story with everyone, naming people in this church that have supported me. I'm not, like I said, I haven't gone through like rough times, and I know eventually there will be a day where I will, and I am trying to, build that strength and trust in God now, so that day is a little easier when it comes. But I haven't had the need to lean on anyone like that. But I was gonna say there's so many, but I feel like I could call up anyone on staff, really anyone in the church, and be like, "Hey, I really need some help," and they'll be like, "Great, what time can I meet you?" Mm-hmm. So I think the daring to care is so strong here in Inspire, and I know that everyone's so connected and everyone loves each other so much. And I know this, we talk about dare to care as this complicated concept of just people, helping each other in the ways they can. And I feel like anything I need, I could come to the church and be like, "Hey, I need this," and someone would be at my door in an hour.
Mm-hmm. We're running out of time here to talk about everything maybe I wanted to touch on with you, but one thing I really wanted to talk about before we close today is you just came out of your 5th year at camp. As of recording this, we're just like a week removed from camp. What did that week mean to you? And what does it mean in the context of you've gone through this camp the entire length of your high school career, for lack of a better term? How have you seen yourself grow? How have you seen this church grow? How have you seen your friends grow around you? What was that like for you this week, your 5th year at camp?
Yeah, totally. I feel like camp is like a mold where I feel like it molds itself into what I need it to be in the present scenario I'm in. And I think that's to do with, I guess we talked about this at camp this year about how the Bible is like its blessing and its curses. It can be interpreted so many ways, where the blessing is that, you can read the same verse and I might take a meaning out of it one way that helps me and you might take a different way out of it. But also the curse is that it causes strife and fight as people think different things. But camp has always been this mold that helps me throughout my year. And it always comes in the middle of summer where I feel like I'm spiritually the weakest. I'm a big creature of habit. So for the school years, I'm very good at reading my Bible. I try to read like 10 minutes a day, whether that's like this year I read it in my car, previous years I would read it right when I woke up, that sort of thing. But in the summer when I'm waking up at, who knows, like this morning I woke up at 7:30. The day before that I woke up at like 9:30. It's like, when do I don't know when to fit that time in. And oftentimes it gets lost in the mix of things. So I feel like in the middle of summer when I'm kind of at my spiritual weakest is when camp hits me. And there's a refresher almost to the school year when I can get back into my routine through church, through my daily life, through my daily practices of religion. But camp when I started was a very good learning experience. I learned a lot of things. I made a lot of good friends. And slowly but surely, especially the first 3 years were very learning focused. This last year and the year before that were very different. I realized that I've kind of, not that we're ever done learning through Christianity, but I've learned the main stuff. Jesus loves you, you're forgiven, all that great stuff. But nothing I was told at camp was ever shocking new revelations. And I've realized these last 2 years that I've got to complete the cycle. We talked about last year the circle of discipleship, and I forget what it is. I have it written down somewhere because it was impactful to me. But it was basically like, kind of like belong, believe, become. It was like learning, studying, like accepting, and then like discipling. And I've realized that I'm on that kind of discipling road. These last 2 years, it hasn't been about what I can learn. It's kind of about what I can teach others. So that's definitely been as a person who's gone through all 5 years of camp, it's crazy how much it changes every year to fit my current scenario.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Kate, any closing thoughts? Otherwise, I'm going to have you pray.
I want to ask you the same question that I asked your brother. If you could give advice, because you said you've always kind of been in your faith, you've always been steady and going upwards in it. Is there any advice that you could give to the underclassmen coming up under you? Because we always say, like, we don't want what we've been building for the last 7 years here at Inspire to end with you guys. Because your group is huge. I think you were the biggest graduating class. We had like 30-some kids.
Yeah, by quite a bit.
And we don't want our youth group to lose that fire when you guys graduate. We want it to keep going. And I think you guys have done a really good job over the summer and over the last year of kind of setting up that next generation, that next group. But if you could give them just one piece of advice or a couple pieces of advice, what would you let them know?
Yeah, totally. The first one that comes to mind is surround yourself with good people. I think the only reason I'm as strong as my faith is today is because I've always surrounded myself by good people. And truth be told, that a lot of that wasn't my choice. Like, my family are good people. And oftentimes that's not the case for people. But what you can choose is your friends. Surround yourself with good friends. My dad has always told me you sniff out your own kind. Luke told me that look at the 5 people that are closest to you, and that's yourself. If you're surrounding yourself with people who aren't faithful, godly people, you're not going to be a faithful, godful person. And I feel very confidently about that. And that's why I've chosen to surround myself with good people who are Christian, who come to church. They happen to go to Inspire, but they could go to any church. Just make sure the people around you are good, because the people around you influence you. Oh, yeah. Oh, my other advice would be involving yourself. I feel like faith involves practicing. And for me, that was always really easy. I have an obvious route. I play bass and drums and all this stuff at church, and I get involved. But even the little things, it doesn't have to be even church-specific related. Going out volunteering, sharing the gospel is probably the hardest version of that, but the most effective. Just make sure you get out and you do stuff with your faith. Because if you get all of that light and you hold it in, why are you even here to show the world?
Well, Kate, would you close us in prayer, and we can bless Ben and everything he's done here and about to do, going off into his future.
Absolutely. Dear God, I just want to thank you for the man you've created Ben to be. He has touched the lives of so many people here at Inspire and outside of these walls. I just pray that you keep the fire lit in him and that you just help him on his next journey of going to the guard band and going to college. I just pray that you keep him humble, keep him looking towards you in all that he does. And I pray that he never loses this spark that he has, that he's able to go and just bless those around him. And we just pray protection and guidance over him and over his life and over his family, because we know it can be scary going off to the guard, but we know that you'll be with him in all that he does. And I just want to thank you again for who he is and who you created him to be. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Ben, as of this going out, you'll be gone the Sunday after this airs, so people won't be able to find you in person. But if they have any questions for you, I'll probably direct them through your dad.
Yeah.
Your dad is Pastor Rob. I think it's rob.peske@inspirefamily.org. Otherwise, if you guys have any questions about the Dare to Care podcast or anything we talk about here, feel free to reach out to amy@inspirefamily.org. Otherwise, thank you guys for listening. Thank you both for joining me, and we'll see you guys next week.